What happens when the third generation trucker meets cutting edge AI? You get Fleet Owl, a transportation management system built by people who actually know what a grease stain looks like. In this episode, we're joined by Dan Brink, Chief Revenue Officer of Fleet Owl and a Navy veteran who grew up in the family trucking business. We dive into how they are moving past the AI hype to deliver real operational tools like AI-driven dispatching and automated document management specifically designed for small to mid-sized fleets. Whether you are battling the current freight recession, worried about the surge in cargo fraud, or wondering how to survive the changing landscapes of tariffs and port costs, Dan shares boots on the ground strategies you need to hear. That's next on the Trucking Risk and Insurance Podcast.
Welcome to the Trucking Risk and Insurance Podcast.
Hey, Dan, welcome to the show. Can you explain to us a little bit about Fleet Owl and who in the hell Dan Brink is?
Sure. So we'll start with Fleet Owl. So Fleet Owl is a TMS software provider. We service small to mid-sized trucking companies.
What the hell's TMS? Just in case somebody doesn't know.
Oh, yeah, transportation management system or transportation management software, some people call it. But we have multiple softwares, so it's transportation management systems.
Beautiful. And sorry, you were saying you target small to medium-sized fleets?
Yeah, we service small to mid-sized fleets, usually anywhere in the neighborhood of 15 to 300 power units or trucks.
All right. And what does Fleet Owl do for the fleet?
Yeah, so it's an all-in-one transportation management software, everything from fuel routing to dispatching, finding loads. We're integrated with over 80 providers right now, insurance companies as well. So, which has become big due to the massive amount of fraud lately, carrier verification companies. So, we've got a well-built-out integration system. I said the company's been around about 12 years, recently rebranded late last year into Fleet Owl from SOS Software prior. But, it's an all-in-one software. Fuel routing is a big part of what we do, as well as AI, right? Everybody's getting into AI now. We currently have 4 different modules to service different parts of the business. And we've built out a very robust AI database system and working on it every day. Obviously, it's always learning and picking up on our customers' habits and little idiosyncrasies and tailoring it to their specific operations.
All right. We'll come back to AI, but before we go too much further, who in the hell is Dan Brink?
Yeah, so Dan is a third generation trucker. My dad was a trucker. My grandfather was a trucker. I grew up in New York, New York City, and that's where I've been in Florida about 12 years now. But I come from a long line of family in the business. Went into the Navy, did the same thing, supply chain, logistics, and it's the only job I've ever had. So I've worked for some big companies, McDonald's, Gap, clothing, XPO, doing distribution, logistics all across the country, mostly in New York, Florida, and a lot of the ports. Did a lot of drayage work as well, setting up drayage terminals for various companies.
Well, congrats. I too am a child of third generation transportation.
Yeah, it's in my blood.
Yeah, it seems like it. And I know my dad didn't want me to get into it, but I fell into it, and I've been here all my adult life. And as you can tell, I'm old.
I'm getting there. The grays are starting to come in, but it's something that just always came natural. I've known about the business since I was a kid. So when I got into it as an adult, I had a real good advantage on everybody else when it came to just even the terminology and how to operate. I love the business, love the industry. Couldn't have pictured myself doing anything else.
Well, this is it. I have to say the transportation trucking industry has been very good to my family, and my kids benefited greatly. They're not in trucking, but they got to do all the kid things, dance and lacrosse and hockey and all that, paid for by trucking.
Yeah. You'll always have a job. That's what I tell people that get in this industry. especially if you're a really good operator. People don't go to school for trucking typically. There's maybe the supply chain side, but not really the logistics side. It's hard to learn in a classroom. But if you can operate in the field, you'll always be employed.
Yeah. So what is your background? Because you are the chief revenue officer of Fleet Owl. What was
Yes.
your educational background?
Just in the Navy, took courses in the Navy, was trained by them in logistics and different modes of transportation, intermodal, especially, being in the Navy, you're dealing with ships, rail cars, outside providers. Just trained through the military. When I got into logistics, there was really nowhere to go to school for it. They didn't have degree programs for,
Right.
supply chain management. Logistics didn't exist. Everybody that I knew came out of the military. I started actually at Yellow Freight back when they were Yellow Freight, before they were even YRC, at a 320 door breaker in New York. So I got stuck. It was the biggest breaker on the East Coast at the time, union Teamster shop, so I got thrown right into the fire early, and learned from those guys. Right. There was no sitting behind a desk in a classroom. It was out in the field and learning it that way. And I think, to be honest, that's really the only way to learn it. There's only so much you can learn behind a computer screen.
Yeah, and it's funny. One of my very first management roles was in a Teamster shop as well, and
Yeah,
it's
both my
interesting.
parents were both my parents were Teamster shop stewards, so their path to that was just the norm. Hey, get into the union. Back when it was strong, and they provided a lot for their employees back then. We're talking in the '90s, but so that's kind of the flight plan I was put on.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get back to Fleet Owl, and
Sure.
specifically, I love AI only because it's something, relatively new. We've been talking about AI for
Yeah.
several years, but really it's still just in its infancy. How is Fleet Owl using AI to help their customer?
Yeah, so with what's going on right now with this freight recession, this is probably, I mean, it's not as bad as 2008, but we're getting close to it, right? I remember, I've lived through all this stuff before. So right now it's about being efficient, and not just routing efficiency, things like that. You really got to dig down to the details now to make your margins. This is capacity is depending on the day. There's a ton of it. There's none of it. We have obviously the issue going on with the drivers in the United States right now. Being checked for proficiency at DOT stops, and we're a company from South Florida. So that's a lot of our customers are down here, so that affects them greatly. But Fleet Owl helps its customers by said the AI dispatching. Basically, it's not going to take away your first shift dispatcher, right? As much as we love AI, I don't know anybody that's really comfortable with it hunting loads for them and, negotiating load pricing. Some people are trying it. Me, I can find a lot of gaps and loopholes in that. When you go to do it, you could be missing out on a lot of money, underbooking your trucks, things like that. So we went right to the operational side of it, right? So dispatching, number one. My second and third shift dispatcher, typically in logistics, they're not booking loads. They're doing check calls. They're handling any breakdowns,
Right.
things like that, any kind of driver issues. So we said, let's start there, right? Let's try to streamline that process and, make it more efficient. And maybe they can, count on some staff or add the AI instead of adding staff, which is what a lot of people are doing. They would just wing it before, and now they're using our AI dispatch agent to check in on their drivers, and it's all interconnected, right? So it knows where the truck is, when it's supposed to deliver, the location's geo fenced. If that driver's not within that fenced area, our AI dispatch assistant's calling it, checking on the driver, and then any, severe issues would be reported back to a human, through the AI dispatch system. And the other one was document management, right? So we attacked that second. And document management is, rate cons, things coming through. So it's speeding up your billing, right? It clarifies any kind of delivery receipts that the driver may send in and sends them to accounting to be billed quicker, right? So you're speeding up your cash flow as well. And, rate cons, you're not, there's a lot of data entry taken out of the system, right? There's people still, typing in rate cons, creating loads in the system. Our AI doc manager scans the doc, creates the load for you, right? And it makes sure it's not duplicated. And that works for emails, that works for spreadsheets, whatever we send in to the AI doc manager will basically take care of all your clerical data. So we're attacking AI from an operational standpoint that way in order to drive efficiency. As far as, like I said, the load hunting, we'll get to that eventually. There's a lot of data that goes into that. We're building out a very robust AI database with, things like Google Maps and telling us when accidents are happening and where they're happening. And then one day, we're looking into a live routing situation where, a driver's driving and it knows at 80 miles up ahead, there's an accident, or you're going through a major city and there's going to be traffic, and it'll divert them in real time. And linking in everything from street cameras to, like I said, Waze, Google Maps, anywhere we can pull that data from. For instance, we use the data from the port on their lag times, and that's all imported. So a dispatcher in the morning can come in and see basically how many boxes he can get out of the port based on AI telling him, what's the least path of least resistance in and out, where they should go, things like that, right? So a lot of our trucking companies that we service said they're small to mid-size, 4 or 5 trucks, some of them as little as that, right? So that makes all the difference in the world to an operator like that doesn't have a ton of staff, that, wants to stay efficient and keep ahead of the game, which is hard enough as it is as a small carrier. But our goal is to help trucking companies out, right? I said I come from a family of truckers. I built the whole system around, something they can use, be profitable, but also like we do per month pricing. So, hey, if times are good and you have 20 trucks, you pay per truck. But if times are bad and you got to scale back, you can scale your software bill back too. Too often companies, in bad times are stuck with this huge software bill and they've taken half their trucks off the road, right? It becomes very oppressive to their operation. So we built this as a trucker friendly TMS. And like I said, a lot of that has to do with my background and, that I have a soft spot for truckers for sure.
Well, I mean, I just did a similar software review myself because, like all of us, subscriptions can really add up. And if you,
Yes.
and I use a lot of software myself, and I'm a solo entrepreneur, so
Yeah.
it adds up. I just cut back on a few things because my company's in a recession, so you have to adjust.
Yeah. It's tough out there. I mean, I think AI operationally for trucking companies, it's going to assist. It's not going to hit as hard as in brokerages and things like that. I think a lot of those positions, AI is going to heavily influence, brokerages, people that are, behind the desk doing the data entry or even posting loads on things like DAT or truck stop. A lot of that can be automated from the brokerage side because they know their price points, they know what margin they want to make, right? They're not going to haggle. They have a bottom number, and they could literally just have it booking through AI, truckers calling or emailing. So, we attacked it from an operational perspective, and we've been very successful so far. People love it. We'll be doing an AI dispatch webinar probably at the end of the month. We got a lot of customers interested, but ours is deployed, and like I said, we customize it to any industry. We're working with oil and gas companies in Texas. And we're working with drayage carriers here in Florida. Doesn't matter the type of business. It's not a one size fits all system. There's intricacies that got to be, tailored to each operation. But great reviews so far. But we don't let it take a lot of risks yet.
Yeah. Oh, so how old is the company before it got rebranded? Go back to that.
Sure. So it started 12 years ago by a gentleman here in Florida, and he grew it as a homegrown business. Never invested in like marketing and sales, and it just grew naturally down here. South Florida is a pretty small community, and trucking, as we all know, is a very small community. It was a homegrown. So we have about 4,000 trucks on the platform now. Have about 100 carriers between professional dispatch companies, brokerages, and just straight trucking carriers or drayage carriers. Phenomenal software. We just tweaked it, added AI, put in some staffing. We have a full sales staff now. And it's just taking off. Companies are looking for those efficiencies right now. It's tough out there.
It is very tough out there. I don't know if you realize you're talking to a Canadian, but
Hey.
Cross-border freight right now is being hit hard here in Canada, and I think freight in
Yeah,
North America is adjusting to the new world of tariffs, and um,
sure.
which it's affecting freight in many different ways. So,
Yeah, that goalpost keeps moving, right?
yeah,
So I have a lot of people that work in import export, and tariffs are all well and good as long as you know what they are, and they don't change every week. So
well,
we've come into a lot of that lately, where a lot of people are having to reconfigure the landscape. Based on, I mean, they could have been the same for the last 10 years, and now everything's changing, right? So your price points, your freight costs, everything shifts.
well, this is it. And, not to talk about politics, but tariffs are not an issue. They are a fact of life currently, and that could change again
Yeah,
in the future. But we have to deal with it. And it is certainly
yeah.
affecting trucking. That's for sure.
Absolutely, yeah, especially at the ports, things like that. The ports itself, between the tariffs and the new wage hikes that the ILA just got and negotiated, you're going to see drayage costs. I think they're going to soar next year once those raises start kicking in. I mean, the longshoremen are some of the best paid people in logistics as it is, and I want to say it was like a 60% rate hike.
Wow.
That's going to fall on carriers, customers. Yeah, the steep ship lines that really, in my experience, they don't take too much onto themselves. They pass it on to everybody else.
Yeah.
It's just my experience as an operator. But yeah, like we're politically homeless. We just play the field that we're given. And like you said, they're there. We don't know if they're going to stay or go, but we got to handle it while we're here.
Well, and I mean, there's no use arguing about politics because it is what it is at the moment. You live with it. Tariffs are here, and we're going to deal with it. What
That's it.
strategies are you implementing now for the fleet owl market to get beyond Florida into some of the other key transportation hubs?
Yeah, so I spent a lot of time out in Texas, Houston, West Texas, Midland, Odessa, and the oil and gas industry has always fascinated me, right? Very robust industry, always does well for the most part, and lots of expendable income. But their software has always been a little kind of like I've never seen a really good PMS software for oil and gas carriers, and I'm not talking about the ones Chevron uses, but the independent carriers out in the fields. So we developed a bulk hauling system for aggregates for oil. Their operation is completely different than any other trucking operation. So we've expanded into the oil and gas market, and that is like our laser focus this year. Florida drayage and oil and gas, right? We really, really are proud of what we built out for oil and gas carriers out there. We've showed it to some, and they've been ecstatic about it. We're talking with a company now out in West Houston. They got about 100 trucks. Did some demos for them, and they're even helping us tweak, those little idiosyncrasies I talked about in the oil and gas industry. Like they have to be able to refuse a load if they show up to, pump oil and there's too much water in it or something like that, right? So that was really our goal, is to get out to oil and gas, diversify into different modes of businesses. And we chose drayage and oil and gas as like number one, right? Those are what we're going after. So we put a lot of work into it, and it's paying off dividends now.
You talk about Texas and oil and gas, and you keep reminding me that I'm watching Landman at the moment on TV.
Yeah. So I told my employees to watch that when we were doing demos for Texas companies. I said, they're going to say a lot of things you don't understand, or, this is kind of the culture out there. I told them all, watch Landman, before we do the demo, and you'll kind of see where these people are coming from and what they deal with. Very no nonsense crowd.
Well, and every piece of the industry has its own language. And that's one of the things
Yes.
salespeople need to get used to. And that's why, like acronyms, I often will call out guess, not call them out, but say, what's that acronym mean? Because
Oh,
not
yeah.
everybody knows what every acronym is. And there's way too
It's
many.
like, yeah, it's like walking into a hospital and listening to the doctors talk. If you go into a trucking terminal and you don't know anything, talking about BOLs and DRs and ETAs, and you can get lost in it quick. Yeah, I totally understand.
Yeah, and so I try to remind our or my guest that hey, not everybody remembers what these acronyms are. I mean, even something as simple
Yeah.
as well, I think likely everybody knows what a DOT number is, but you can't take that for granted either. You know.
You can't, not with the current level of training we have in the United States for our professionals and especially our drivers. We could do much better in familiarizing people before putting them in the field. That's for sure.
Well, I mean, you kind of brought it up. I'm in the one of the things I do is some driver training, a little limited amount. And I read recently that in the US, the 3,000 schools have been closed down. Like just,
Yeah. So there was about 17. I think there's about 17,000 schools total in the U.S. Now, when people hear that, like, hey, 200,000 drivers got taken off the road, they don't know that there's only 3.4 million CDL drivers in America. And if you think about this country, that is not a lot, right? So 200,000 is a good dent. They closed down about 3,000 schools, and then they warned another 4,000 that they had to be compliant in 30 days or they would be closed down too. And I'll tell you a quick story about that. So I know that these schools, a lot of them have not been operating in the best interest of the person they're training. I had a driver come one time at XPO. This is probably about 6, 7 years ago. And brand new driver, and we would train them for a few weeks with a senior driver. So we told him to, grab a tractor and go hook to the trailer, door 43, whatever it was. And he told us he didn't know how to do that. And we were stunned. We're like, what do you mean you don't know how to hook a tractor to a trailer? And his response was that, well, that's not part of the test. So they didn't teach us that. They're only teaching them what they need to know to pass the test, right? But you also need to know those things to just be a driver. So I actually reached out to the school and I said, you send these people to me and you want me to hire them, but the guy can't hook a tractor to a trailer. And yeah, I know it's not part of the test, guys, but hooking up your airlines and stuff is it's part of your CDL, right? So the schools, I think that's been a long time coming, with the product I've seen most driver schools produce. And I think anybody who's been in logistics a long time would agree with that. Drivers have become, steering wheel holder is the term a lot of people use now because that's what they're doing. They put them all in automatics. They train them to the bare minimum. Most over the road guys can't even back trailers up. They have to have yard jockeys do it when they get to receivers. So that is a welcome respite from what's been going on. I would like to see, drivers trained better and more extensively. If that comes out of this, that would be a good thing.
yeah. And I think there's going to be changes coming. I hope there's going to be changes coming. But as you say, they just can't train to the minimum. But congrats to that driver in that story for having the courage when he shows up to a new employer to say, I don't know how to do that. Like that had to take courage on that
Yeah.
driver's part.
And we just assumed he did. Thankfully, he didn't go out there and try it and start, banging stuff up in the yard. But I mean, that is the most basic of operations as a truck driver, right? And they didn't train him to do it. So it was like, okay, guys, come on, help these guys out when they're out there, trying to start their new career as a driver. And they went to school and they paid you 3, 4, 5 grand, to get their CDL, and you haven't told them how to hook up to a trailer and put their airlines on. Like,
I'll tell you, in Ontario, where I'm based, we have government mandates for curriculum and everything. And most driving schools are getting very close to 10 grand to get your CDL now. So,
yeah.
anyway,
They charge you extra now if you want to learn how to use a manual.
Yeah.
Yeah, they charge you extra to teach you how to drive stick. It's gotten a bit ridiculous.
It has gotten funny, but let's get back to Fleet Owl. What technology do you think, or how is the technology of Fleet Owl going to help trucking companies manage and mitigate risks?
Yeah, so that's a big one right now, right? Fraud is getting huge, right? So we have quite a few tools already built in that can help verify carriers for brokers and things like that and dispatchers. But that is a hot topic. Like I'm sure you heard about the lobster load that got stolen.
No.
It was Yeah, somebody stole a load of lobster. It was about $400,000 worth of product just by posing as a carrier, and showing up. And, they tricked a broker into giving them the load, showed up, took it, and just disappeared, right? Fraud is becoming way more prevalent because everything's online now. Things are done by email and through, those communication lines instead of picking up the phone. And so, like, companies like Highway, Carrier 411, they're coming to the forefront because it's all about verifying this is the person you assigned this load to or gave this load to go pick it up. I think one day there's got to be some kind of system. I don't know if the DOT implements it or, it's just done by the industry proactively to be able to verify carriers at receivers when they're picking up, and that's one of the things we've looked into, right? We've did a lot of that carrier verification as well as, RMIS, where you can verify carriers if you're a broker, your pro dispatch company signing them onto your MC. So that's probably our second in line right there. It's AI, and then fraud has really jumped up to the forefront. So we're working on all kinds of different fraud prevention initiatives, but mostly through integrations with companies like Highway, Carrier 411, so that they can stop it from happening. I don't know if it's going to stop it. I mean, people have been stealing truckloads forever, but I used to work in Newark, New Jersey, so I've seen quite a bit. I mean, guys would just bobtail in, hook to a trailer, and drive off. So as much as we can stop it, we're trying to, but that's become a real hot topic lately.
Well, and yeah, I've had some load brokers on the show as well, and it's a real thorn for them to be dealing with fraud.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can do everything to try to do it. But now we used to make them take a picture of the door of the truck, right? Like when the driver was on site, just so we could verify the MC and DOT number. But nowadays you got AI, you can generate that image and send it to them, right? I mean, fraud is, and you can't tell the difference, right? If you're just looking at it as a broker, AI picture versus a real one. Oh, there's the truck, there's the MC number, there's the DOT number. They send over the Raycon and the pickup number, and next thing you know, your load's stolen, right? So I think you're going to see a big push for that in the coming years. It's already started with overseas fraud, just getting into trucking now. It's gotten out of control.
Yeah. So Fleet Owl is assisting the carriers in that area.
Yeah, we're definitely we put in a number of verification modules to. I said we don't have a ton of brokers or dispatch companies on the platform, maybe 10 to 15, total, but it's their number one priority. And as people get into brokerage, because brokerages pop up left and right, people are starting them in their basement, but they still have to verify, that these are the right carriers. Are they good carriers? What are their CSA scores? All that information is basically put into a condensed version in our software and tells them pretty much everything you could find out about that carrier through Google or the DOT or Safer. It's all at your fingertips instead of having to go to a million different sites.
Right. Well, I mean, I think every trucking company is at least sometimes a load broker. Like if you only got 10 trucks and you got 10 loads and one of your trucks breaks down, you phone up your buddy and say, "Can you do this load for me?" Well,
Yep.
that's the way it used to be when I was a dispatcher. So I don't think it's
Or
changed.
you leased a truck or something. Yeah. You figured it out. But now you got to be scared to death because you think if you have a really big customer, right? Like that load, for instance. And I used to move lobster loads from Maine into the Bronx. And we used to tell our drivers, you do not arrive there until the sun is up. Don't you dare drive there and park in Hunts Point in the dark. They'll rob you and take the truck and everything in it. That's and this is back, like I said, in the 90s, early 2000s. We used to tell people that. So it's been going on forever, but we got to do better about building in those fail safes and at the DOT level too. The transportation's got to get involved. It'll probably be the insurance companies that push for a better system to verify pickups at locations. I would imagine they'll take the lead on it, but if you lose a load like that, I mean, that's a big deal. Did you get a rider for it? Are you only got $100,000 in cargo? Did you go get that rider for the extra $300,000, or is that coming out of your pocket? Can you afford to pay it? You're definitely going to lose the customer for the most part. So there's a lot that goes into it, and we hear that is a really, really big concern from our customers. Is like I said, AI is number one, and fraud prevention is getting to be number two.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's an easy way to lose a customer when you give a load away to the wrong carrier.
Yes, yes.
All right, last question, I think. What else do we need to know about Fleet Owl?
No, just we're an expanding company. Like I said, we've really seen a boon of growth because everybody's looking for those efficiencies now, right? Our AI is operational AI. It's not. We found that a lot of people are just throwing that word out there. They're promising things that it can't really do effectively yet. Like I said, load hunting, things like that, booking loads for your drivers. We're not there yet, right? There's got to be a lot more data points before we could build out a module. I mean, we're working on one, but yeah, we're on the cutting edge of the AI tech revolution here in trucking. We've worked with other companies, and we've actually integrated other companies also that use AI, but it's not a magic bullet, right? But everybody we've deployed it for has been very happy about it, right? It can definitely help make your operation more efficient. It's not going to be AI dictating a bunch of robot trucks driving around the country yet. We're not there yet, but one day maybe. But we get a lot of unreasonable requests about what they want it to do versus what it can actually do at this point. So we try to manage expectations, and like I said, everybody we've deployed it for has been happy so far. And building out the database has been it's been both fun, challenging, something new for me. Being in logistics almost 30 years now, trying to teach I'm the logistics guy working with the tech people. And like telling them where it needs to get this information from and what's the best way to pull it in and engage that, and just kind of how operations work, right? So I mean, we're having a blast over here at Fleet Owl. Our customers are happy about it. We're growing fast, and like I said, doing a bunch of upcoming truck shows now. We got a great product, and we're more than happy to show it to anybody who'd like to see it.
Okay, so we'll leave it right there. But for the viewers and listeners, if you are going to a truck show, and I imagine this is just the U.S. truck shows right now?
Well, for right now, yeah, we'll be at the Florida Trucking Show, February 21st, 22nd, right here in Fort Lauderdale. And then probably some of the other ones, like Texas is a market we want to get into, one in Houston, and I believe it's in July. But we hit the trucking shows that are for the truckers, right? Things like Manifest and TPM are more for shippers. So we stick to our customer base when it comes to our shows.
All right. Thanks so much, Dan Brink from Fleet Owl, for talking to us today. Hey, and thanks, Dan, for coming on the show this week. Your contact info is in the show notes down below for all of you who would like to reach out to Dan. And again, thank you all so much for listening to this week. That's it. Leave us a comment. I'd love to hear from you, and click like and subscribe. Chris Harris, Safety Dog. I'm out of here. See you next week.